Hi everyone, I am Sam. Today we are going to talk about biology. From the earliest humans, gazing curiously at plants and animals, up through modern scientists unlocking secrets hidden in the genetic code, our understanding of life has continually grown. Thousands of years ago, people didn't have a formal word like biology to describe what they were doing. Yet, simply to survive, they learned which plants were safe to eat, which animals could be hunted, and how to cultivate crops. They realized that plants and animals went through cycles of growth and reproduction, much like people. They learned that some species were found in certain places, but not others. Without calling it science, they were already studying life. Over time, this quiet accumulation of knowledge began to take shape as something more structured and systematic. In ancient civilizations like those of Egypt, India, and China, scholars wrote down information about medicinal plants and agricultural techniques. They documented how seeds sprout and yield food, how certain leaves or roots can heal, and how animal behavior changes with the seasons. But it was in ancient Greece that we find some of the first attempts to explain why life is the way it is, rather than merely describing it. Thinkers like Aristotle cataloged animals, noting their similarities and differences and trying to classify them based on shared traits. Although he lacked the tools and modern understanding we have today, Aristotle's effort to impose order on the living world was an early and significant step towards scientific thinking about life. As centuries passed, people's understanding remained limited, often mixing carefully observed facts with myths and beliefs. During the Middle Ages in Europe, for example, some still thought that small living creatures spontaneously sprang from mud or old rags. Without microscopes or proper experiment controls, it wasn't easy to challenge these claims. Yet, curiosity never died. The invention of the microscope in the 17th century revolutionized how we saw life. Suddenly, a whole hidden universe of tiny organisms revealed itself. Antony van Leeuwenhoek peered into drops of pond water and discovered animalcules, squirming and darting about with amazing complexity. Robert Hooke looked at a thin slice of cork and saw tiny compartments he called cells. This was a pivotal moment. The concept of cells, once invisible to the naked eye, eventually became the foundation of understanding what it means to be alive. With more precise instruments and methods, scientists recognize that all living things are built from these tiny units called cells. Plants, animals, and even our own bodies are composed of cells working together in unimaginable harmony. This discovery led to one of biology's first great unifying ideas, the cell theory, which states that all organisms are made of cells, that cells are the basic unit of life, and that cells come from existing cells. This understanding took biology out of the realm of speculation and anchored it firmly in observable evidence. Yet, understanding that everything is made of cells was just the beginning. Another piece of the puzzle was how traits are passed from one generation to the next. For centuries, farmers had selectively bred crops and livestock, choosing the best seeds or the healthiest animals to produce the next generation. They knew inheritance worked somehow, but they didn't know the rules behind it. In the mid-19th century, a quiet monk named Gregor Mendel performed experiments on pea plants in a monastery garden. He noticed that certain traits, like the color of a pea's flower or the shape of its seed, followed consistent patterns when passed down through generations. By carefully counting and analyzing these traits, Mendel established the basic laws of inheritance. Though his work went largely unnoticed in his own time, it became the bedrock of the science of genetics. As Mendel was unraveling inheritance in his garden, another revolutionary idea was taking shape in the minds of Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace. They asked a different but related question: why is there such an extraordinary variety of life on Earth, and how did it come to be? Darwin's trip around the world on the HMS Beagle introduced him to a dazzling array of species. He observed subtle variations among similar species, noticing that each was adapted to its own niche. From this, Darwin reasoned that life is not static. Instead, species change over time through a process he called natural selection. Individuals with traits better suited to their environment survive and reproduce more successfully, passing on those favorable traits. Over many generations, these small changes accumulate, leading to new forms of life. This idea, evolution by natural selection, is one of biology's most powerful theories, explaining not just how species change, but also how they are connected by common ancestry. If the cell theory explained what makes up living things, and Mendel's work explained how characteristics are passed on, evolution explained why life is so diverse and how it came to be that way. Together, these discoveries began to form a coherent view of life. Yet there was still a critical missing piece: the mechanism that carried the instructions for life from generation to generation. Researchers needed to find the physical substance behind inheritance, which was widely assumed to lie in the cell's nucleus. By the mid-20th century, James Watson, Francis Crick, Rosalind Franklin, and Maurice Wilkins unlocked the structure of DNA, the elegant double helix molecule that encodes our genes. This solved the mystery of how traits are coded, stored, and faithfully copied as cells divide. With the discovery of DNA's structure, biology entered a new era. Scientists could now directly examine the genetic code, understand how genes produce proteins, and see how slight changes in DNA could lead to variations in traits. This allowed biologists to answer questions that were once science fiction. Could we read an organism's entire genetic blueprint? Could we identify genes responsible for certain diseases, and perhaps fix them? As the Human Genome Project launched and completed decades later, we gained the ability to read nearly all the genetic information of our own species. A spectacular achievement that would have stunned the scientists of earlier generations. Along the journey from Aristotle's classifications to the sequencing of the human genome, biology continued to expand, branching into specialized fields. Some biologists focus on tiny molecules that make up cells, studying how proteins fold or how DNA is transcribed into RNA. Others examine whole ecosystems, tracking how populations of predators and prey interact, how nutrients cycle through the soil, or how climate change affects biodiversity. Still others look at the big picture, investigating the evolutionary relationships between species, constructing family trees that map the evolutionary paths of life from ancient microbes to modern mammals. Whether it's molecular biology, genetics, ecology, or evolutionary biology, each branch contributes unique insights that help paint a richer picture of life on Earth. But what is life exactly? This simple question has caused centuries of debate. Life is not just about movement. Some things that aren't alive can move. It's not only about growth. Crystals can grow without being alive. Biologists often list certain features. Living things are made of cells, they use energy, they respond to stimuli, they grow, reproduce, and maintain a stable internal environment despite changes outside. However, none of these traits alone perfectly defines life. Instead, it's the combination of all these characteristics, supported by a molecular machine encoded by DNA, that makes something alive. Life is chemistry, woven into patterns so intricate and dynamic that it sustains itself, changes, and even evolves. One can think of biology as a detective story, unraveling the secrets that make living things tick. Although we've made enormous strides, many questions remain. How did life originate on Earth billions of years ago? We have good clues and plausible theories involving simple chemical building blocks, energy from the Earth's environment, and self-replicating molecules that led to the first cells. But we do not yet have a complete picture. As we discover life's building blocks in unexpected places, like deep-sea hydrothermal vents, where bizarre organisms survive without sunlight, our assumptions about what is necessary for life shift. Researchers are even searching beyond Earth, scanning other planets and moons for evidence of organisms. If life exists elsewhere, it would revolutionize our understanding of biology and perhaps redefine what we consider life to be. Another mystery is how complex life arose. The earliest life forms on our planet were simple, single-celled organisms, something like bacteria. For billions of years, these microbes ruled. But then, somewhere along the evolutionary timeline, cells began to cooperate, forming colonies that eventually led to multicelled organisms, plants, fungi, and animals. How did these early cells decide that working together was better than living alone? Understanding how complexity evolves and how cooperation and symbiosis shape life remains a central pursuit in biology. The scope of biology also includes understanding how organisms adapt to their environment. Every aspect of life, from the shape of a bird's beak to the camouflage of an insect, can be examined through the lens of adaptation. This helps us understand not only the creatures around us, but also our own species. Humans, too, are products of evolution. We share a common ancestor with all other life on Earth. And by studying genetics and the fossil record, we can trace our lineage back millions of years. Although we stand out for our large brains, language, and culture, we still bear the marks of our evolutionary past in our bodies and behavior. Another important aspect of modern biology is the interplay between different fields. Genetics and ecology, for instance, come together in conservation biology, a field devoted to protecting species and habitats from extinction. With habitat destruction and climate change threatening the delicate balance of life on Earth, biology provides the knowledge needed to guide policy and preserve biodiversity. By understanding how ecosystems function and how species depend on each other, we can make more informed decisions that protect the life around us, and by extension, ourselves. Biology also steps into medicine, transforming healthcare and our understanding of human disease. Since we know that DNA carries instructions for building and running our bodies, changes or mutations in those instructions can lead to illnesses. By studying the genetic basis of disease, biologists and medical researchers can design treatments that are more targeted and effective. The development of vaccines, antibiotics, and new therapies all rely on insights from biology. As gene editing techniques like CRISPR emerge, we might one day correct genetic defects at the source, opening doors to personalized medicine that treats the cause, not just the symptoms. But with great power comes great responsibility. As biology advances, it raises profound ethical questions. Just because we can alter the DNA of an embryo, should we? If we can clone organisms, should we clone endangered species or even extinct ones? As we engineer crops to be more resistant to disease or harsh climates, how do we balance the benefits for human food security with potential ecological impacts? Biology offers us incredible tools, but the wisdom with which we use them will shape our future. In this sense, the story of biology isn't just about the past or the present. It's about what kind of world we want to build. Over thousands of years, we've moved from simple observations of nature's patterns to a sophisticated understanding of the molecular machinery of life. We've glimpsed into the evolutionary tapestry that connects all living things and begun to rewrite parts of nature's code ourselves. Yet, as we grow in knowledge, it's important to remain humble and curious. The living world is vast, and much remains unknown. If you imagine walking through a lush forest, your senses overwhelmed by the chorus of insects, the whisper of leaves, and the calls of birds, you begin to appreciate that every one of those living things embodies countless evolutionary experiments in survival. Each has a genetic story that stretches back through time. Each is a product of its environment and a participant in a complex web of interactions. By studying biology, we learn that we too are part of this grand network. We are connected to other living things through our shared chemistry and evolutionary history. Biology's narrative is a bridge between the physical and the living, the past and the future, the known and the unknown. It helps us understand why a mushroom grows where it does, why a whale's flipper resembles a human hand in bone structure, why certain diseases run in families, and how a community of bees communicates about the location of flowers. It reveals that all life relies on similar basic processes: the flow of energy, the storage and use of genetic information, and the capacity to respond and adapt to the environment. This capacity to adapt has allowed life to survive countless challenges over Earth's long history, from asteroid impacts to ice ages. Life is remarkably resilient, but as human activity alters the planet's climate and landscapes at an unprecedented rate, the future of many species, including our own, depends on how well we understand and respect the principles of biology. Our ability to feed a growing population, maintain clean water supplies, and preserve habitats that house intricate communities of organisms all hinge on applying biological knowledge wisely. Imagine if we had no understanding of biology, no sense of how the pieces of life fit together. We would face these challenges blindly, unable to foresee consequences or devise effective solutions. With biology, we can look beneath the surface, see hidden connections, and predict outcomes. We can recognize that protecting coral reefs matters not only for the fish that live there, but also for human livelihoods and the global climate. We can appreciate that understanding microbial life isn't just academic curiosity, but key to developing new medicines or improving soil fertility for agriculture. Moreover, biology connects deeply with other fields. Physics and chemistry help us understand the forces and reactions that underlie biological processes. Geology provides insights into how life and Earth have shaped each other over billions of years. Psychology and sociology examine how our biological heritage influences our minds, behaviors, and societies. By bringing these strands together, we gain a fuller picture of what it means to be alive, to be human, and to belong to a living world that never stops changing and evolving. As we stand at the threshold of new biological discoveries, synthetic life forms, brain-machine interfaces, the exploration of life under extreme conditions here, and perhaps on other worlds, our fascination with life continues to grow. We continue to refine our definitions, debate our ethics, and push the boundaries of what's possible. From the humblest microbe to the most complex multicellular organism, from the largest whales to the tiniest insects, from the ancient past to the distant future, biology's story is unending. The more we learn, the more we realize there is to discover. In the end, biology reminds us that we are not separate observers, but participants in the grand tapestry of life. We are both students and stewards, both product and beneficiary of billions of years of evolution. By understanding what makes life tick, its rules, patterns, and history, we gain the power not only to survive, but to appreciate the beauty and complexity of the living world that surrounds us. Whether you're taking your first steps into this field or you've been exploring it for years, biology invites you to look more closely, think more broadly, and wonder at the incredible mystery and diversity of life. That's all for today, and I'll see you in the next episode.